Yu-Gi-Oh is a game where money is the greatest tool of all time. You could buy cards, you could sell cards, you could bribe your opponents, although that's against Konami policy. Konami, please don't ban me. Anyways, some people would try and take advantage of players, you know, less than financially sound minds. And that's why, for today's Smarter with Stevie, we have the most overhyped cards and decks of 2020-ish, because we're gonna dip into 2021 just a little bit. I have a list of 10 cards of the most overhyped cards. People thought they were gonna moon, and then it turns out that a lot of them were not that good. So let's start with number 10. Stellar Wind Wolfriot, the worst virtual world condition win con of all time. It's a level 9 synchro. You can only control one of them. It gains 300 attack for each time another monster's effect is activated, and while the attack of this card is less than 4,000, once per turn, if this card is 4,000 or higher, quick effect, you can shuffle both this card and all monsters your opponent controls into the deck. That's pretty interesting. There's a lot of hype surrounding this card. Virtual World just got True Kingdom of All Calamities banned, God bless, and holy crap, Lois, look, a new win condition. Compared to Zeus, this is a very easy card to make in house. It's a level 9 generic synchro. You can sit on it alongside Shen Shen. You know, it's pretty good. Ending on a Zeus that even had a better removal effect that was absolutely insane for Virtual World. Surely it will be the new win condition, right, chat? Turns out, this card kind of sucked. Turns out having a conditional Zeus that took like 10 billion years to charge up was not a good win condition. It also turns out that making Wolfriot over something like a Shen Shen or a Crocosaur was just, you know, terrible. Like, Crocosaur could at least net you draws. Shen Shen was, you know, Macrocosmos, so that shit's fucking bananas. And it's just too high investment for a card that it's going to be live only against monster-based matchups, and versus stuff like Eldritch or Back Row, it's going to be 100% bajillion of the times dead. And even if it was live in a certain matchup, your opponent's either going to play around it, it's going to get popped, it's going to get negated, or your opponent, I guess, is blind and will walk face into it. Number 9, Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Earth Machine will be a good deck. Surely, we just need 10 more structure decks. During your main phase, you can activate this effect. This card in your hand becomes revealed until the end of your opponent's turn. While this card is revealed by this effect, set cards on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects. If a set spell trap is activated, except during the damage step, you can special summon it. Then, if you can activate it while it's revealed, you can reveal one set spell trap directly from your deck. But you have to banish it during the end phase of the next turn. So it's pretty good. You get to grab any card from your deck, you get to set it face down, you get to protect yourself from stuff like Lightning Storm. It's pretty poggers. Even Nightmare Phoenix can't even get over it. Control mid-range decks that play traps, such as Machina and Salamangreat. Finally, new win con. You can grab stuff like Pot of Extravagance. You could even grab Fusion Destiny. You really, really want to. Surely, Earth Machine, Machina. Surely these decks are good now, right? Unfortunately, it wasn't really. This card wasn't really all it was hyped up to me. Turned out that back row was awful and remained to be awful for the better part of a year. Most decks during this period of time and just later on, they had non-destruction removal, or they didn't really care about back row. Stuff like Sword Soul had stuff like the Tenyis to just bounce stuff. Adventure packages had Draco back. Ultimately, back row decks never took off. There was never a real back row format. And there wasn't really anything great to set off of it outside of like Fusion Destiny. And additionally, it just bricked your hand sometimes. Like if you didn't have any way to get to like a set Machina Overdrive line, you were kind of just playing with like your deck in your hand. You weren't really doing much. Let's talk about number 8, Ready Fusion. Gotta love those extenders. Pay 1,000 life points and you special summon a level 6 or lower non-effect fusion monster from your extra deck, but it can't attack and you have to destroy it during the end phase. It's kind of like instant fusion. I love vanillas. Decks like Fish and Shark are a lot more consistent. You're able to grab like level 4 extenders. You can even grab level 6 extenders if you want to go into like Beatrice. You could basically play this card in anything if you want an extender. So obviously you can just put this in everything. This is the greatest extender of all time, right? Well, turns out a lot kind of has to go right if you want to put in a free extender card. If you're going to be dedicating space in your extra deck to summoning a thing, it turns out that card has to actually be good. I know, this is crazy. Unless you were doing something very specific, you'd rather do anything else with that deck slot. It also took up extra deck space, which, especially as of late, is notoriously tight. Overall, this is just a card that really just wants to be instant fusion, but kind of misses every single part of instant fusion that makes it good. Number 7, Morphtronic Telephon. The only effect that's relevant is the first one. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can roll a 6-sided dice and gain life points equal to the result multiplied by 100. Then you can special summon a Morphtronic monster from your graveyard with a level equal to or lower than the result. And that is not a hard once per turn. If you had multiple Telephons, you could just infinitely loop them. Telephon brings back 1, you tribute 1 with Cannon Soldier that you sent off of Curious and added back with Firewall, and then you would just use the Telephon, the new Telephon to bring back the other Telephon, you use the old Telephon as Cannon Soldier fodder, you repeat this forever, and this is actually a pretty consistent deck. You could basically do this whole combo with like the Hulk line. It's fucking cracked. And additionally, if you didn't want to FTK, you could also link spam. So, theoretically, because the deck is so consistent, you're always going to get the FTK off if you go first, right? Well, turns out decks that aren't Sprite in tier limit during the first week of the meta are still playing hand traps. Some people are just playing Sprite with hand traps in general. Also, link spam, you know, kind of sucks. It's not a good strat due to Master Roll 5 cutting off U-linking as a viable strategy, and there aren't really that many good payoffs in the extra deck. Like, realistically, what is the best link spam board you could set up? Like Avermax, Appaloosa, and IP, and that's pretty bad. And also, 2 weeks after Euros, people started playing hand traps again, because Danger Tier, like, kind of hard lost to those. It's basically, again, Danger Tier without any of the upsides of Danger Tier limit, which is, you know, consistency, power, ceiling. Oh yeah, ability to play through a single imperm. Number 6, Fluonderies. The first wave at least. So, what are the Fluonderies cards? It's a normal summon archetype that chain together summons by their small birds, and you could end on large tribute bosses. You can search floodgates such as Wind Barrier Statue, you can search the gates such as Apex Avian, you can search hand traps such as DD Crow, you can search board spins in the form of Mega Raiza. You could basically search any winged beast, and it was absolutely nuts. It also had insane spells and traps, which included Pseudo Vanity Fiends, Storm Force, and Double Summons in the field spell. Everybody was saying that this deck was gonna go hard. Yassine made a funny tier 1 video. Simo said that this deck was gonna be tier 0. And honestly, it kinda was. It was extremely consistent, it had an amazing back row lineup, and it also had ways of playing through interruption or countering interruption. You had the field spell, you had Gold Shark, you had Crossout, you had Book of Moon. You also just like all these amazing cards. So this deck has to be tier 0, right? Well, it was not tier 0. Oh, I used the same card, huh? So the main problem was that the deck was not as consistent as people originally thought. You needed to find a line with exactly Rabina, or you were kind of in a really sussy spot. Matches were kind of flowcharted on you either going first, or if you lost a dice roll, pray to God you open Shifter. Oh yeah, also you lost to a single hand trap. Like, if you got Ash Blossomed or Impermed, and like you didn't have map, go next. It was over. Overall, Blunder is just kind of this really sacky deck that doesn't see massive competitive success at tournaments due to these inherent consistency and luck factors. Number 5, Predaplants. Oh, by the way, this is post-Espia. So, what are the Predaplants? Basically, they're a fusion-based archetype that line up great with the Despias, and arguably the best deck of the time during the Charlotte-Hartford meta. It had a great extension and resource loop for the branded fusion stuff, and you could honestly get a ton of material so that you never were like draining yourself dry for Guardian Chimera plays. Surely these silly little plants will make our Despia deck better. It made it like a bit more consistent and made less resource draining. Pack and Jesse made day 2 of Hartford. Good players are on it. Good players have never been wrong about cards, right? Well, things could have gone a lot better. So it turns out that one of the big reasons why people sort of dropped the Predapractice stuff was because it didn't really help playing into Mystic Mine, which was the big boogeyman of the format, even more so than it is now. You'd rather just play either hand traps or cards that outed mine. You'd rather basically play like 9 copies of Cosmic Cyclone than Predaplant cards, you know? Also, Pack and Jesse didn't clear day 2. Not a single Predaplant Despia player cleared. All I gotta know is that Mystic Mine can suck my nuts. Number 4, King of the Swamp. How the hell is King of the Swamp overrated? So let's read it real quick. This card in your hand, field, or graveyard can be used as a substitute for any one fusion material whose name is mentioned on the fusion monster card, but the other fusion materials must be correct. You could also discard this card to the graveyard and add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. This card had an amazing house in tier limit, mainly because early tier limit builds were, you know, like a little bit shit. Pure tier was focused on making the deck as consistent as possible. This was a very common ideology that was going around the time because everyone was really worried about how consistent Sprite was. And people were like, oh my god, I can't play my RNG deck. We have to make this deck consistent. And one of the solutions that people landed on was King of the Swamp. It also paralleled pretty well Prank Kids and Polymerization to make these massive graveyard combo chains. Like you would discard it to add poly, you would fuse 2 cards together, you make it colorless, you chain link 1, chain link 2, chain link 3. Oh my god, it's the greatest deck of all time. Also, Swamp is an aqua, so if you mill it, it makes it colorless, I guess. I mean, any card that helps tier has to be amazing, right? Well, turns out there were a lot of better cards, and those cards were called the Dangers. They were not only tier enablers, they also made extenders, they made Curious, Nessie was also an aqua, they also triggered the tier names, and you didn't have to have multiple names in hand in order for the tier limit synergy to really go off. King of the Swamp was never bad, but it was definitely just a massive overcorrection in the consistency department, and people ended up just like realizing like a week later, like, oh shit, we can just play good cards. Number 3, the Therions. So they're basically an engine of dudes who can special themselves and equip themselves or respective types from the graveyard to gain specific effects. Most commonly, you're playing Lily Borea and Regulus, the plant and machine, and you play them because Lily Borea was a free special summon, and Regulus was also a free special summon, that if it was equipped or had something equipped to it, it gave you an Omni Negate, which is absolutely crazy. Who would have guessed? Omni Negates, crazy. This is basically Adventure Package 2. Free Omni Negates, I'm gonna cream. It was splashable into piles. Punk Therion was arguably one of the best decks of the Hartford meta that just got discovered a little bit too late. And it also revitalized decks such as ABC, Sky Striker, Sun Avalon, etc. I mean, how could a free Omni Negate engine ever be bad? Well, the 50th time I will say well. Turns out that an Omni engine that needs 12 bricks isn't that good. The deck kinda lived and died on Chaos Ruler resolving for the Punk variant. The main way you were gonna get access to these cards was mainly through Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler was kinda the lifeblood of it. And as the format has evolved and new cards have come out, as well as, you know, Chaos Ruler being fucking banned, that's not really an option anymore. Additionally, holy hell, the Therions are breaking. There were a lot of bad Therion cards. You have to play like the spells, you have to play like one of the quick plays, you have to play like 3 Lily Borea, 2 Regulus, like one of like the little guys, then you have to play like there were so many cards that you had to play that were just so bad, and it was just really frustrating for a deck building experience. Additionally, non-pile decks that could have splashed the Therion, such as Sun Avalon being the best example, realized that you could kind of just play better cards. You could kind of just play, you know, hand traps, board breakers, in archetype extenders, you know, stuff like that, instead of cards that, you know, compromise consistency. Number 2, Crossout Designator. You guys are surprised that this isn't number 1, aren't you? But let's talk about Crossout. Declare 1 card name, banish one of that declared card from your main deck, and if you do, negate its effects as well as the activated effects and effects on the field with cards at the same original name until the end of this turn. When this card got revealed, everybody thought it was the greatest fucking card on earth. I thought that this card would ruin Yu-Gi-Oh! It saw insane results in the OCG and was even limited, and it could even be splashed as an anti-side card for cards like Nibiru or Floodgates or Silver Bullets like Jewel and Lockbird versus Drytron. It's definitely a tier 0 staple in every main and side deck, right? Well, turns out that it wasn't really Crossout that was good. It was more Max C was good. Max C was just way too fucking good of a card. It's definitely the plague and scourge of the OCG and Master Duel. And we all know that we will do anything to make sure a Maxi doesn't fucking resolve. So this is why cards like Callby are played at max copies, Ash Blossom is played at max copies, and, well, by that extension, Crossout Designator is played to such a high degree. The TCG doesn't really have a threat as omnipotently broken or common as Maxi, and that really does show the varied success that the OCG and the TCG had. Splashing this as a main inside also compromised your deck's consistency. It was definitely something you could do. This wasn't very good. Like, you'd rather just play like Solemn Judgment or like a Pointer of the Red Lotus or something like that. The number 1 most overhyped archetype or card. It's Sprite! Commenters, please don't call me the N-word. Let's break it down. They're a combo deck that has a bunch of inherent specials. They synergize extremely well with level, rank, and link 2 monsters. You get a bunch of free searches. It had recursion in its Xyz and its link lineup. You had amazing spells and traps. This archetype was absolutely bananas. You had an amazing end board with Elf plus Toadbuster plus Djinbuster. You had crazy follow-up thanks to Toad Floats and Ronin Toadin. You had negates in Red and Carrot. It was extremely consistent when you compared it to Tearlament and any of the other decks of the format. It entirely warped deck building around it. Think of board breaker meta, when everyone was mainly dark rulers, triple tactics, enemy controllers, change of hearts, mind controls, etc. This deck was the tier 0 super threat of Pote format. Or was it? It turns out that Sprite had a lot of other issues that I think people got a little bit too carried away with. One of those things was that it had a really hard time OTKing. Anyone who's ever played Sprite will be like, damn, I can only do like 2,000 damage? What the fuck? That was one of the big issues. You could not OTK. Second of all, Sprite was terrible into time. Sprite starter burned you for like 1,200. The tier matchup was extremely combo based and the format was extremely grindy, so that definitely didn't help. And additionally, when it came to combo building boards, it turns out that Danger tier was way better than Sprite. Anything that Sprite could do, Danger tier fucking shat on it. It also didn't help that cards like Super Poly were running around if you ended on multiple aquas, which punished you getting like an additional target for the Sprite smashers as a banish. And it didn't really help that you couldn't really end on red/carrot alongside elf, because guess what? You were gonna get fucking Super Polyed, which really did suck. Sprite cards were still great on their own, or when splashed into other decks, like ironically Tier, because Tier apparently is a Sprite deck now. But just the idea of Sprite as a deck in itself turned out to not be as amazing as we originally thought. And we see this in top cut graphs, where in the regional scene at the first, everyone was playing Sprite. Sprite was getting the vast majority of tops. And then as the format became more and more solved, Tier kind of fucking devoured Sprite. And now Sprite has the same representation as Math Mech, and I wish I was joking. And that's it! Thank you guys for watching so much. If you want to catch these segments live, twitch.tv/StevieBlunder, twitter.com, StevieBlunder__, youtube.com/c/StevieBlunderReal. You're watching that right here. Please subscribe. And if you want to hire me or give me Twitch partner, StevieBlunder.com. And yeah, that's it.